Hello guys, it is Gates of Theories here, and last week the brand new Rise of Skywalker hit cinemas, and man, what an awesome movie. I know lots of people seem to hate it, but personally I just thought it was one of the best Star Wars movies they have ever created. It was incredible, and it ended off the saga really well. But before we head on any further exploring Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, we are going to put a huge spoiler warning on this video, because there is going to be so many spoilers in this video in about the next 10 seconds. So if you haven't seen The Rise of Skywalker, make sure you go and check it out and then come back and see this review. So today we're going to be reviewing The Rise of Skywalker, and before we go any further, let's just quickly talk about probably the biggest reveal of this film. The fact that Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter. Lots of people weren't expecting it, and I think some people were expecting it, and before we even went into this movie, we already knew that this was the case because it had been spoiled to us, which we absolutely loved the fact that it was, by our commenters who had seen our previous video, Is Rey Palpatine's Granddaughter? From years and years ago. We put out this video when The Force Awakens first came out, with a little bit of evidence to see maybe it might be true, and then it turns out it was true, and you guys have been amazing with commenting stuff, being like, oh, you got this correct 3 years earlier. And if you do want to go and check out that video about how we thought Rey might be Palpatine's granddaughter from all the way back in The Force Awakens, then you can go and check it out by clicking the card, or there'll be a link down below in the description, and you get to hear me from 3 years ago with a really high voice. Why wouldn't you want to see that? So make sure that you go and check out that video if you want to. And before we go any further on into this review, make sure that you smash that red subscribe button down below and have your notifications turned on, and let's get on to this review because I am so excited. So, first of all, these are my initial thoughts of this movie as soon as I was walking out of the cinema, that it managed to conclude what they're calling the Skywalker Saga, which is every single episode so far, all together, all about the Skywalkers. It managed to conclude that saga really well at the end, and it was an amazing ending, and it felt like it ended really well. However, the trilogy, like this sequel trilogy that we've got full of Rey and Poe and Finn and all them, it didn't really end that so well. So first of all, let's talk about how it ended the entire Skywalker saga really well. And the reason for that is as soon as we saw Rey at the end on Tatooine by Anakin's house, and we see her bury the two lightsabers, and then we see her get her brand new one, the only left lightsaber right now in the galaxy, and it turns out white. Now, this has only ever happened before with Ahsoka Tano in the Clone Wars and the Rebel TV show, where she basically is Anakin's apprentice, and then she turns to the dark side with Anakin, but then repents and comes back and ends up getting a white saber. And that is sort of similar to what Rey's happened here. There is finally balance in the Force, and that is what the whole of the Skywalker Saga is all about, trying to find that perfect balance. In the prequel trilogy, we see Anakin is on the light side, but then he sees maybe that's not the good idea, so he thinks maybe to balance out the Force, he'll go onto the dark side, and he does. In the original trilogy, it's all about trying to bring this balance to the Force. Will Luke go to the dark side, or will he stay on the light side? And then finally, in this sequel trilogy, we finally summed up the entire Skywalker Saga, because now there is officially balance in the Force, and that's what this white lightsaber represents. The fact that there is no red lightsabers, there is no blue lightsabers, there's no dark, there's no light. Instead, there is perfect balance now in the Force. There's still the Jedi, and there might still be a Sith out there, but right now, there is balance. And this was all shown in the act between Kylo Ren and Rey, finally managing to hold hands when they kiss, when they finally defeat Palpatine and they realize they don't have to be bad and they don't have to be good. They can just bring balance to the Force, and that's what this white lightsaber really represents. And that's what I found so amazing about the ending of this film, is that they buried the lightsabers so that they could have this white saber, and it just represents this balance so perfectly. So that's why I think it concluded the Skywalker Saga really well. However, concluding the trilogy, I mean, it did its best, because to be fair, this trilogy has just been all over the place. It's not like the prequel trilogy, where it was leading up from Anakin as a young boy, leading up to him turning into Darth Vader, and it wasn't like the original trilogy from Luke becoming a Jedi and ending up defeating the Emperor. Instead, this trilogy has just been all over the place. Sometimes you think Rey's going to go to the dark side, sometimes you think she's going to go to the light side. Don't even get me started on Finn's love life in the trilogy. In The Force Awakens, he loves Rey, doesn't he? In The Last Jedi, he loves Rose. And then in The Rise of Skywalker, he seems to love this brand new girl that he seems to have found. Like, Finn, get your love life sorted out. But in this trilogy, I think the reason why it doesn't always flow so well together is because, of course, J.J. Abrams didn't direct The Last Jedi, and The Last Jedi basically sort of tipped things over and made it basically unbalanced. And that's why this trilogy doesn't really work as well, because it wasn't like the same team who did The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker did the middle movie. So that's why it always seems to be a bit like it doesn't always flow together correctly. And we can really see this in this movie, because in The Last Jedi, Rose was quite a predominant character, and it was looking like she was going to become like a really big character in number 9. And then, of course, The Last Jedi flopped, and poor Rose, her character was basically looked down on because no one seemed to like her character. So what they did in The Rise of Skywalker, well, they did what they thought was best. They literally got rid of her. By which I mean, they realised you can't just get rid of this character that we've created in The Last Jedi, but no one liked her. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that she doesn't have anything to do and just make her stay with the Resistance. Literally, the film would not change one bit if Rose wasn't there. At all. So what they realised is Rose didn't work in The Last Jedi, so we're just going to get rid of her. And that was the problem with me with this trilogy, is that it didn't really flow as well together, and it's probably because The Last Jedi just didn't fit with The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker. That's not me saying that The Last Jedi isn't a good movie, it doesn't fit with the other parts of the trilogy. So those are my main thoughts on The Rise of Skywalker and how it concluded the Skywalker Saga and the sequel trilogy. But now let's talk about some of the big things that happened in this movie. So let's start off with our category deaths. Now, I know that sounds pretty brutal, but of course we knew going into this movie that there was going to be some major deaths that happened, mainly just because it's the end of the saga, so we knew some people are going to die, and because Carrie Fisher died back in 2016, and her character didn't die in The Last Jedi, so we knew it would have to happen in The Rise of Skywalker. And I thought they actually did it really well, how they basically just got her to sit down and lie her on this bed, and we all knew what was happening, and so did the Resistance. The characters inside the actual movie knew that it was time for Leia's time to be up so that she could help Rey with the Force, and I just thought that worked really well. So I thought they did that part really well. However, the deaths seemed to get a bit repetitive, and you'll see what I mean, because we already knew from the trailers that they were teasing that C-3PO was going to die and have his memory wiped out, and we were all like, oh no, what's going to happen? And then he came back later on, okay? That was fine for that one moment, but then it started happening quite a few times. For example, when they tricked us that Chewie died. Now, at first, as soon as we thought Chewie had died, and considering from Rey's reaction, by the way, it was a perfect tease that Rey might be related to Palpatine when she used lightning to almost kill Chewie. The fact that Rey almost killed Chewie, and that everyone, including the characters themselves, thought Chewie had died, completely shocked me. Like, I would just remember sitting there in my seat, completely shocked, like speechless, not knowing what to say, because we thought Chewie had died, and I don't know whether he should have died or not, but as soon as we found that he was alive, it gave us all a sigh of relief, like, oh, it's okay, he's still here. But then when you think about it, it did start to get a bit repetitive. There was C-3PO, there was Chewie, there was a couple of other characters where it looked like they were about to die, and then it turns out, actually, no, they're fine. So it looked like Chewie was about to die, but no, he was actually on another ship. It looked like C-3PO was going to die, but then actually, no, his memories are still stored in R2-D2's. In the final battle, Rey looked like she was going to die so many times, but then she didn't. So it did get slightly repetitive, but apart from that, the way how they shocked us all that Chewie might have died, it was done spectacularly, because I honestly thought that he had died, and I found that horrible. Speaking of which, though, if we're on about dead characters, let's think about bringing the dead people back. Now, I thought when Rey was killing Palpatine and she needed the strength of the entire Jedi army with her, I thought it was a really nice touch to hear lots and lots of the old Jedis, including Anakin, there was Mace Windu, Yoda, Luke, Obi-Wan, even Qui-Gon Jinn, when I looked at the cast, he was even speaking in it, and I thought that was a really nice touch. And also Ahsoka, who we talked about before with the lightsaber, also started saying, Rey, you need to do this, you need to get up, and I thought that was a really nice way of doing it. It wasn't overdone. However, at the end, when we saw Luke and Leia as Force ghosts, I know this sounds really cringy, but I probably would have liked, as a fanboy, all of the old Jedi, all of their ghosts, including Anakin, all to look back at Rey as she buried those lightsabers, because I just thought that would be a perfect way to conclude Skywalker Saga, but I did like how they did it. Speaking of which, when they got Han to return, that was interesting because Han was a memory, he wasn't a Force ghost, so it was just Kylo Ren imagining him being there. He wasn't actually there, so that's why he didn't have any sort of glowing things happen. But I thought they did that scene really well, because if you look back, considering I watched The Force Awakens literally a day before I went to go and see the Skywalker Saga, so I still had Han Solo's death in my mind, and the scene when Han Solo dies in The Force Awakens was the exact same scene as the one where he returns in The Rise of Skywalker to Ben Solo. It's the exact same scene where Han says, you can come back to the light side, and then Han touches his face, and then in The Force Awakens, of course, Ben Solo kills him at that moment, and then in The Rise of Skywalker, instead, Han Solo is able to walk away because Ben Solo has changed and doesn't want to kill him, and it was the exact same lines of dialogue, almost without any sort of difference. However, this time, instead of all these lines hinting to Ben Solo wanting to kill Han Solo, they were the same lines but had different meaning. It meant that actually Ben Solo has now changed and wants to stop being Kylo Ren, and I thought the way how those two scenes mirrored each other was done really well and worked really effectively. Speaking of deaths, I thought there was one thing that really made this movie excel, which was the stakes were huge. Every time you thought everything was good and there was not going to be any problem, suddenly something huge even came. Like, every single Imperial Star Destroyer had a gun on it that could destroy a planet. They had Starkiller bases, weaponry installed onto them. The stakes were absolutely huge, and when it looked like there was only the Resistance and they didn't have anyone else who wanted to come and help them, and it looked like the whole galaxy had just lost hope and was going to lose to the new Final Order, the stakes were just amazing and huge. And every time Rey was put on the floor by Palpatine, it looked like everything was over. There was a time when the Knights of Ren were going to kill Kylo Ren, and it just looked like he was going to die, it looked like Rey was going to die, it looked like the Resistance were going to die, and the stakes were just incredible. And speaking of Reylo, I think we can all be happy that Reylo finally happened. Rey and Kylo Ren did kiss and they made up with each other, and I thought the way how the Force visions worked, especially when it looked like Kylo Ren was going to die, and then because of how strongly connected Rey and Kylo Ren were, they were able to pass a lightsaber using the Force towards each other, and Kylo Ren was able to escape the Knights of Ren using Rey's lightsaber, and I thought that was incredible, and the chemistry between them two just worked really well. However, if we're speaking of how big the stakes were, you could say that maybe Palpatine and Rey were a bit too overpowered, like considering Rey is pretty new, and saying that she's more powerful than Luke and Anakin, bearing in mind Anakin is Darth Vader, the most powerful Force user ever, is a bit stretched. You could say that the argument was that she had all of the past Jedis running through her 1,000 generations, and then because of that she was able to destroy Palpatine, but there is a bit of overpowered use in this film. But either way, if you just brush past that, it is still really great. And then finally, these are just a few last points that I won't go into much detail about. A bad thing that I found was that they instantly, in the first paragraph of the yellow writing, instantly just introduced that Palpatine was alive without any sort of context, and they didn't really explain it throughout the rest of the movie. I thought there could have been more of a build-up that Palpatine was still alive. Now, I know they're probably going off the fact that since the first teaser trailer from Palpatine's Laugh, we've known that Palpatine's going to be in this movie for ages, and he's been in every trailer. But if in a couple of years you were watching this and you'd watched from episode 1 all the way up to episode 9 and you didn't bother watching the trailers and you didn't know what was going to happen, then just instantly introducing that Palpatine is alive, considering you thought he died, just would be kind of a bit of a shock. So I thought they should have really more gradually built up to Palpatine still being alive. And the only other bad thing that I have is that in the end they didn't reveal what Finn wanted to tell Rey. Now, we have theories. It could be that he wanted to tell her that he loved her. could be safe, it could be he believes in the Force, it could be anything, but we still didn't find out, and that's what really annoyed me. I just really want to find out what Finn wanted to say. And then a final few good points. If you watched it in 3D like I did, I thought the 3D was actually really good. It wasn't like overused, and it just gave it some depth and some perspective. Poe's backstory was really funny. We finally found out a bit more about Poe, and it sort of built more of a story arc around his character throughout the last 3 movies. Leia's old saber and Leia's old training that we found out. We found out a lot about Carrie Fisher's character, and I thought it was a really nice send-off to Leia, and that was really, really good. And that is basically all I've got on The Rise of Skywalker, and I thought overall it was a really great movie. I don't know why enough people are criticizing it. Some people are saying that there was too much action. I didn't really think that. I thought there was an even balance, and also, if you want zero action, go and watch the prequels, okay? Because some of the lines that Anakin says, do you really want that? No, I don't think any of us want to hear no action and just want to hear lots of dialogue, because we've seen from the prequels that maybe that isn't the best idea. But anyway, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, then please make sure that you smash that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Again, if you want to go and find out how we thought Rey might be Palpatine's granddaughter, and you want to see me from 3 years ago, you can go and check the link out in the description down below. And as always, we've been here in Creative Theories. Make sure you leave all your thoughts in the field section down below on The Rise of Skywalker and what you thought of it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.